This video is an experiment. I want to do more things on YouTube, but also my average YouTube video is an absurd operation and my mainline videos aren't getting any shorter. So I'm going to try and force myself to be concise about topics that randomly irritate me or come to my mind where I can't necessarily justify making a whole detailed video about it, but I want to talk about it. Especially when I think people need to shut the fuck up about that topic, to put it bluntly, and I'll try to explain why I think that. Obviously, this will mean a bit less in the way of background in the videos, and I'll be expecting you to come into this with some passing familiarity with what I'm talking about. Also, I get that I don't actually have the power to make the people I'm mad at actually shut the fuck up. The people who annoy me range from politicians to journalists to other YouTubers, and even you. Yes, you watching this, you could get one of these videos made about you. Don't make that happen, but it could happen. The idea is these are more of a shorter form resource to point your friends to if they're doing these things, or just to give you some quick fire starting off points for looking into it further. By the nature of the format I'm trying out here, it's gonna be light, casual, shorter, hopefully. The deal is, if I go over the word limit that I've set for myself, then I have to do a full proper video about the topic. And no, this explanation doesn't count towards the word count, or for anyone decides to get clever and ask me what the word count is and then count the words and realize this is over the word count. That's pretty much it. I just want to say that if there was ever a video to give me feedback on, whether by liking, disliking, commenting, this is the one, because I want to know if this works for you. If the style suits me, anything you can think of, just let me have it, as long as it's related to the video. Don't push your luck too much. Otherwise, let's have some fun and get into this especially annoying topic. A language has been developed in British politics stretching back to before Tony Blair was in government, around the public finances of the country. It runs parallel to the idea that the public finances are analogous to a household budget. The idea of tough decisions, difficult choices, hard choices, words to that effect. They're always herald cuts. To just explain why this is on my mind at the moment, in March 2025, when this video is being released, the UK is going to be having one of its fiscal events. This time I think it's the Spring Statement, which means that this language around tough decisions, it's going to be ratcheting up, especially in the wake of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's announcement that we're accelerating our path to 2.5% of GDP being spent on defence, which, yay, that's so good. The language of tough decisions has become such a permanent fixture that basically every government of my lifetime has explained to the public that they have to make these choices. Starmer, on basically day one of his government, used this exact phrase when outlining what his intentions were after he won the election, and was appointed Prime Minister for better and for worse. Really, mostly for worse so far, but I guess the jury could still technically be out. That same government has used tough choices to justify shutting down the last helpline for male survivors of abuse to make savings of £250,000. No, that's not me misspeaking. That is literally the amount of money the government is going to save from this decision, which makes the way politicians cry about how tough these decisions are so annoying, and frankly, I don't want to hear it from them anymore. A good example of this crying from politicians is Wes Streeting, the AI-generated health secretary, in reference to the means testing of the winter fuel allowance. He said that he was not remotely happy about it, while still invoking the tough choices, tough decisions, whatever it is, doctrine, which is very aggravating because it's a plea for sympathy for something that's entirely his own choice. To which I'd say, I don't have sympathy for a politician making a decision they know harms people and then crying about how hard it is. If you don't agree with it, then don't vote for it. It's that simple. I get that governing is hard sometimes, but if you don't want to do it, then get the fuck out of the way and let someone who actually wants to do things get in there, You don't have a God-given right to be a politician. Get a day job, get a real job. You can't have it both ways. You voted for it, and people have a right to judge you and to shrug off your excuse that it was difficult. Life's difficult, Wes, and you've made it more difficult for people by doing this. So no, I don't think we have to make difficult decisions is a good excuse for deliberately harming people, and it doesn't make me sympathetic. I don't want to hear politicians complaining about it after the fact. The bigger issue with the difficult decisions framework is it's a lie. It's very similar to the household budget analogy that politicians like to use for the national budget. Both of these work for a similar reason. We understand how a household budget works, that if we spend more than we earn, we're either eating into savings or borrowing money, and that becomes unsustainable at a certain point. It's a total barefaced lie that has no basis in reality, but I can understand why people fall for it. It's familiar, it's simple, and it's a good excuse to do what you were already planning to do. Tough choices is a lie of a different kind. It's a lie about the sentiment of politicians. I don't believe that the politicians who have pushed this idea actually find it very difficult or tough at all. I'll flesh out my thoughts on that a bit later, and other ways it's possibly a lie, but that's the main issue at play for me. This rhetoric works because we have to make tough decisions throughout our lives. For a lot of us, there are a lot of mutually exclusive choices presented to us at various stages of life. Do I stay with my partner, or do we break up? Should I move to Japan because I'm panicking about my life, or stay in the UK? Do I go to the university my parents want me to go to, or to the one that I want to go to? Are these examples from my actual life? Who's to say? My point is that difficult decisions rings true because it's a fact of our lives, and because governing is hard. It is about choices. In a democratic political system, you don't know how long you've got. Depending on the country, it could be between 2 and 5 years. You can't do everything and please everyone in that time, which means it rings true to a lot of people, and the temptation is to give them a pass for that. One of the ways the idea of tough decisions is useful for the political class is the way it takes values out of politics. You can see it in how I have to talk about it being a lie of sentiment. We're going to spend more time in this video talking about whether or not I believe these decisions are tough or the nature of government than what these decisions were. It's a trap, and I've fallen for it, but I'm only falling into the trap so I know how to get away from it. It's largely play acting and cargo cultism. They think that successful governments have had to navigate difficult periods, and so by, in my view, faking it until they make it, they try and appear successful, which, is clearly going well for the UK government. This playing up of the difficulty of decisions has this additional utility of dismissing simple solutions. There are no simple solutions or easy answers, we'll be told. In a way, it's part of this anti-populist centrist restoration we're living through in the UK. We're often told, rightly, to be wary of those offering simple solutions to potentially complicated problems. This is a great way to just shut those out of the conversation entirely and to not have to defend the politics at play. Also, sometimes the problems are simple, and therefore the solutions are simple. I don't know if people have considered this. I do understand that just because a solution is simple or it makes you feel good, that doesn't mean you should do it. That being said, I come from a physics background, and sometimes the simplest explanation or solution is the best one. Take, for example, Rachel Reeves' difficult decisions. These are forced upon her by the fiscal rules that she sets. For her, the difficult decision was to float the idea of cuts for the benefits of disabled people. For me, I'd change the rules, or perhaps consider taxing the assets, consumption, and incomes of the rich. I know that's probably unacceptable populism and not how the grown-ups do politics, but also, she's in charge. She has the power. If she's using it to hurt the disabled because of something she's in control of, then can we really call it a tough decision or a difficult choice or whatever they want to call it when she's the limiting factor? At the end of the day, I find all of this a bit rich. The truth is that there are difficult decisions that have to be made in government. Of course there are. How could there not be? Just as there are in life, and when we make a choice in our lives, it's not Baldur's Gate free. We can't save scum. We have to live with the choices that we make, and we have to live with the decisions that politicians make on our behalf. They largely don't have to. They don't have to live with them. They're insulated from them, even if they're in an affected group. Frankly, on that basis alone, we should reject this framing and the notion of difficult decisions. But just for you, let's prove my point that the idea of tough decisions as presented to us by politicians is a lie. Let me tell you a story, and I promise you it's relevant. When I was a student, there was a noodle place near my student accommodation that had discounts on Tuesdays, which was the day I had my labs as a physics student. After labs, my friend would drive us home, and then we'd go to the noodle place, and basically, I was a dickhead. Much to everyone's surprise. Me, aged 18, a dickhead. I'd stand there looking like I was thinking really, really hard about what I'd eat on a menu with 5 items, by the way. Eventually, one of my friends snapped at me and said, "You always get the same thing. Stop acting like this is hard for you." And that's kind of my point here. If you keep making the same decision over and over and over again, while acting as if it's a super difficult decision, I think I'm entitled to doubt whether it's actually difficult. In this case, whenever tough decisions are brought up, the same types of people and groups are targeted. Some are common no matter the party in government, like disabled people, people on benefits, more recently what the government has been calling people with long-term sickness, which, if we're being honest, probably disabled people again in large part, and groups that are moral panicked about, like single mothers on benefits. This has been the case for my whole life, but it's intensified with the austerity regime we've been living under since 2010. Anytime there's a problem with the economy, we decide it was libraries in Wolverhampton that caused it, or that the disabled have had it too good for too long. Which, no. There's no other way. No, just no. Governments also target groups that don't vote for them with these tough decisions. The Conservatives loved to target students and under 25s, the two groups where, at least since 2015, they've basically had no constituency. I think they came 5th with 18 to 24-year-olds at the last election, and they didn't do much better with the people my age either. Labour have taken it out on the WASPy women, who they campaigned with before the election to get them the justice that they think they deserve, and turned around and told them to fuck off. And on pensioners, who don't really vote Labour even when they win landslides anymore. Labour didn't do especially well with them. They just didn't. What this speaks to is that tough decisions fall on groups the government thinks it can get away with being tough towards. Partially because our political class are, at their core, cowards who feel big when they pick on disabled people, or kids, or pensioners, but also because they're insulated from the consequences. So excuse me if I don't really take the idea that these decisions are tough at face value, when the same people and groups keep getting hit by them over and over again. We're entitled to just say, fuck you, you're pricks. Especially when a guilt yield crisis leads to Liz Kendall immediately offering the disabled as a human sacrifice. But we can find the infinite money glitch for weapons. Now, not to put a plot twist into this short video, but it's also a lie in the same way that the household budget analogy is a lie. In that the idea that the government has to make a single choice as if they're a 17-year-old picking what university to go to is obvious bullshit. Even for those of you who aren't statists, one of the great advantages of the state is that it can do multiple things. Famously, it can walk and chew gum, so even if you think, hey, we need to increase military expenditure, which, no we don't, but fine, we can do that and not freeze NANs or cut international aid or starve kids. A government can and should do many things. When that capacity exists and a government chooses not to use it, we shouldn't mistake this for actual, like, tough decision making or hard-nosed decision making. A lot of the tough choices are self-imposed, and a lot of them are what they wanted to do anyway. Don't let them get away with it, and don't let their supporters and cheerleaders get away with it either. One of the worst expressions of this is that it's trickled down to activists, particularly a largely centrist, middle-class group at the moment, who really support the government, who I will point out are largely unaffected by the tough choices, who preach to us and lecture us in those terms. As much as I dislike politicians using this framing, I actually think this might annoy me more. You should try talking to me like I'm an actual person, rather than an abstraction on your screen. You don't have to talk like a junior minister. You're a regular person, at least as regular as a centrist can be, so you can just be normal and talk to people normally. Part of the reason why they're not speaking to people normally is that they can't really justify the policy, so they fall back on the messaging from the top, which doesn't work for me, and I doubt if you're watching this that it works for you. Trust me, if you're a supporter of the people doing the tough decisions and you think those decisions are wrong, you can say that. And you can change your mind. You don't have to support these people. You can support other people, new ideas, learn new things. I promise you, it's not going to be nearly as bad as you think it's going to be. If you believe something, say it. If you don't say it. It's that simple. The general impact of all of this is just a suffocation of politics. And it's not just the people who are having tough decisions made about them today that are going to suffer. The worst byproduct of this is that the way it's wielded against sort of simple solutions or the people offering them is that it does close off decisions that sound simple but would actually be tough decisions that really could have interesting long-term implications. Just to give some examples, we could cancel Trident and reinvest that money elsewhere. We could raise taxes on the rich in all the ways I mentioned earlier. Raise inheritance tax, stop spending so much money on hardening our borders. Cut military expenditure, give everyone £1,500 to stimulate growth, or make it illegal for rich people to own newspapers. And I'm not saying you have to agree with all of those things, but they would actually be tough decisions because they would require challenging some core assumptions about how government should be done. And also they're simple. And for me, they're easy. Right? Sometimes we need to be more worried about the people saying they're struggling with a decision than those who are guided by principles and find them easy to make. That's what the real issue is. It's that there are no principles other than power when someone says tough decisions. And can we be surprised that those decisions always target the powerless in that case? I don't think so. I don't think anyone should be repeating this rhetoric to us on behalf of the powerful. So if you're about to tell me that we need to make tough decisions like social murdering disabled people, have you considered that instead you should shut the fuck up? And that's it, basically. I need to thank Molto, who made the base image that I'm using for the thumbnail. It's an absolute banger. I love it. I love any image that involves me, and I believe this one will involve me. I actually haven't seen it at the time of recording this, so if the image isn't me, well, then I love the image anyway, probably. I also need to thank my proofreader, who had a much easier job with this one than previous ones, so thank you to them. And I need to shout out the patrons and members. Thank you so much. Everyone, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe and comment and tell me what worked, what didn't work in this format, all of that good stuff. And if you really liked it, patreon.com/SKTheCrusader and becoming a member on YouTube are great ways to support the channel more materially. Otherwise, I need to shout out our top tier patrons: Drone Riff, Mercutio, Kersley Scheider, John N, and Liron, absolute legends that they are, and the YouTube members Nade Jiwa, Katie Marshall, Roger Zugi, Scaly Bubble. They are also absolute legends. Thank you to everyone who's made it to this part of the video. I really appreciate it. Please let me know if this format works, if I'm good at it, if I need to actually just do 50-minute videos forever. Whatever, just tell me what you think, and I will catch you all on the next one, which will probably be substantially longer. Peace!